Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelicharz. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelicharz. Thank you so much for being with us again this week. To our loyal subscribers, we really appreciate your attention. I know you're getting some great information from some awesome guests, and this week's no different. I've been very proud of the variety of guests that we've had each week, and the diversity. It's really been amazing. So we're excited about that, and we're excited to get another episode going this week. If you're new to I Got a Guy podcast, I encourage you to go to my website, and it is igotaguypodcast.com. You'll see a list of all of our episodes. You can listen to all of them, see a brief synopsis about each episode, and also there's a link to YouTube and Rumble if you want to watch the episode. So we have a wide range of options for you, all in an effort to get this information in your hands, whichever way is easiest for you and most convenient. So encourage you to do that. If you would like to be a guest on I Got a Guy podcast, I encourage you to reach out via the website at igotaguypodcast.com. Send your contact information over. We'll have a conversation. We'll see how we can fit you into the schedule and get you on our list of guests. So I'd love to have new guests and a wide range of topics. So anyway, we as you know, this podcast was born out of reading a book called The Go-Giver. And The Go-Giver is very focused on helping small businesses grow through networking, but not networking in the way most people think of networking. Networking, the most successful networkers focus on giving referrals, not getting referrals. And so if you read this book called The Go-Giver, Bob Burg is the author, you'll really understand how important giving referrals is in a network, in growing a business. And I find that this was my one way of giving back to help small businesses grow. I love small businesses. Small businesses are the foundation of our economy. They're the foundation of our country, and just love the entrepreneurial spirit. And as a small business owner myself, I just really, I'm passionate about that. And so I wanted to give back, and this is one way to do that. So if you're familiar with the book and you know our past episodes, I typically pick a law of stratospheric success that correlates with our guest for the week. And this week, the law we're going to touch on is the law of value. And it's defined by give more in value than you receive in payment. Give more in value than you receive in payment. And as you get to know our guest, you're going to see how that marries up with his personality and his business. And I'm really proud to have him as a guest and get his message out to all of you and see if he can help and if you can help him. So that's that. Let's get started with this episode here. Let's get started with our guest this week. So I'd like to welcome Tim Caruso. Tim is the founder of the Kids Equipment Network. And Tim's going to talk all about his background, how he got into this business, and how this business helps kids. So, Tim, welcome to the episode. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the Kids Equipment Network and kind of how you got started and what its mission is and how you serve the public.
So the Kids Equipment Network was kind of a brainchild of a nurse at Shriners Hospital and myself. I worked at Shriners Hospital for over 25 years. And Shriners does wonderful things. They still do wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of, it kind of started when I saw people carrying their children with special needs into the building. And I thought, well, you shouldn't have to carry your child with special needs anywhere, in my opinion. And so we had this little closet at Shriners where we had wheelchairs and things for mobility. And if someone needed something and they didn't have it, we would go in our closet and we would give it to them. And that was a great little thing that we did.
Wow, that's
value added to our customers.
Yeah, and such a huge impact to those customers that needed it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it allows them to be absolutely more independent. So this was going along quite nicely. And one day they had a fire marshal inspection, and he went into our closet and decided that the stuff in the closet was a fire hazard of some sort. And he told us that we had to get all our stuff out of the closet and we couldn't keep it there anymore. And there really wasn't any other place to do that. So while we were pondering all of this, the people would continue to bring things, donations, and Shriners would write a thank you letter at the front desk, but the items would kind of roll out to the back of the hospital and get put in the dumpster.
Oh,
And that was it was more than a little disconcerting. It was disconcerting to a number of us who knew the value of those items.
right.
So um, one night we went to Maria's restaurant on Harlem Avenue, and we had some dinner and a few margaritas. And margaritas are the secret sauce for some magical things. They create courage. At least the first couple can create courage.
Ah,
And so Lisa was my partner in crime on this, and we decided that we should start a charity. And she said, "Well, I'm single and not dating. I'll be the president, and you be the vice president." And that's what happened. We did that, and that was a little over 19 years ago. And we didn't know how to do that or what to do about it, so we started conferring with people, and we got our 503c status, and we filed all the paperwork, and we were about ready to, just start handing things out. And somebody pointed out that we needed insurance to do this if we were going to do it on our own. And so I
sure.
called my buddy at Allstate, and he said, "Well, we don't do that. You have to call a broker." So I called a few insurance brokers, and one of the first bids on getting insurance for doing this was, over $15,000 for a 1-year policy. So that pointed out a couple of things to us. One, that we didn't have $15,000, and two, that we needed to seek further advice and further bids and maybe have a little fundraiser to do this. So there's a friend in the city who had a pizza place, and I called her and said, "We need a fundraiser to do this." And she said, "Well, come on, we'll have pizza, wine tasting, and a piano player." And so we had a lovely evening. We made a couple of prize baskets, and we had this little fundraiser. And at the end of the evening, I asked her, "Hey, what do I owe you?" And she said, "Just tip the wait staff and keep the change." And so we did that, and the change ended up being about $10,000. And so that was our first $10,000. And in the
Oh,
meantime, we were hunting down insurance for liability and whatnot. And we found a policy for $5,000. So we bought a policy for five and put five in the bank. And that was probably March of that year. And we said, "Well, how many kids can we help from March till the end of the year?" And we said, "Well, let's try 10." And we ended up helping 32 children by the end of that year. And that was the beginning of the Kids Equipment Network. And since that time, we've handled over tens of thousands of pieces of equipment. We've helped over 4,000 children by providing them a piece of equipment at no cost. And we do this at monthly clinics where we have, I call them my usual suspects. You got a guy, I got usual suspects. And we have volunteers, and we send out hey, we need some helpers. In fact, we're having a clinic this weekend. And at our monthly clinics, we have two kind of types of clinics. One is a MacGyver clinic, where we actually rebuild and refit and repurpose wheelchairs, standers, gait trainers, specialty adaptive pieces of equipment to fit specifically for the kids who ask us for them. And then we have another clinic, which we call our Community Wheelers Clinic, which is adaptive strollers, because families may have a wheelchair, a specialty wheelchair that they use for their child, and they can go to school. They usually need a van or a specialty lift on a bus to take them to school, but the family may not have a van to be able to drive that chair around. So the child can go to school and maybe a medical appointment, but they can't go in the family car or go out with their aunt to the restaurant to have dinner or to the park because the chair doesn't fit in somebody's Ford Focus. So and a secondary piece of equipment is often not covered by an insurance provider. So we provide adaptive strollers to them as a secondary device that can be folded up and put in the trunk of a car, or a manual wheelchair that can be folded up and put in the trunk of a car. So it can be used, for running to the store, running to the park, running somewhere with the family who doesn't have an adaptive vehicle. So
Right.
in a nutshell, that's kind of, what the Kids Equipment Network does. And, my partner in crime, Lisa, has retired from the organization. So I've kind of inherited the whole ball of wax, but we have a board of directors, and we have quarterly board meetings. We have a yearly strategic planning meeting, and we've learned how to do a whole lot of things uh, about running a charity. And I say,
Sure.
there's that orange book, How to Do Something for Dummies. So I think I'm going to write the How to Run a Not-for-Profit for Dummies book, because I've learned how to get insurance, write grants, solicit lower than MSRP pricing for equipment that we actually need to buy. So, for example, we have to buy the adaptive strollers new, and because people donate a lot of equipment, but an adaptive stroller, typically when it gets returned to us, and it's not in good enough shape to give to somebody else.
Sure.
So and actually the adaptive stroller part of the equation picked up significantly during COVID, because, as you can imagine, fitting a wheelchair to someone and custom adapting it takes a great deal of hands-on face time. And during COVID, we didn't want to expose the children or our helpers to more germs than necessary. So we did adaptive strollers only. And that was great. The need is there. The need continues to be there, but I have
Hmm.
to buy them new. And that's a great expense to us, even though we get pretty good pricing from a manufacturer. They have been very gracious with us and kind of giving us their cost for
Yeah.
adaptive strollers that can typically cost, $1,000 to $2,500 per stroller.
Wow.
And if I had to pay that price, there's no way we can do what we do. So
Sure. Yeah.
um, that's kind of, in a nutshell, my longer elevator pitch. But that's Tekin. That's how the Kids Equipment Network, what network started, and how we continue to do what we do. And it's a dent in the greater good, and everyone that comes, it fills your heart, and you see uh, that we are able to change a child's life in real time. So they come in, being carried in, or in something that's in disrepair. Sometimes people bring their kids in a wagon that isn't the ideal mobility device for a
Of
child with
course.
special needs, and they leave in an adaptive stroller that everyone is smiling, and we've actually made a change in their life right now, and it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So
Yeah, and that really goes back to when I mentioned the law of value. The reward that somebody receives from getting one of these pieces of equipment is amazing. And we happen to have a dear friend of ours, a neighbor of ours, who has a child with special needs, and we have watched this child grow over the last 20 years, and it's amazing. A few things are amazing. First of all, the various pieces of equipment that are needed to assist this individual, give them some independence where they can, or just support. Sometimes it's not independence, but just normal support in life. Um, but as they're a child and growing, their body grows, and now they outgrow those pieces of equipment
yep,
pretty quickly. You think
sure,
about kids outgrowing a pair of shoes or a pair of jeans. These children outgrow these devices very quickly as well.
absolutely,
And if insurance doesn't cover it completely, and as you mentioned, these adaptive strollers being $1,000 to $2,500 a piece, that could be a huge financial drain on the family. And
absolutely,
if you don't have the funds to do that, I mean, it could be devastating. And what ends up happening, I would think, in a lot of those cases, is the child goes without because
that's
of the
true,
family simply can't afford it. So, uh, and then when you think about the fact that, okay, your child outgrew this device, maybe it's a stand or a walker or a wheelchair, it stacks up in your garage. Well, if you can donate that to a facility like yourself, where you can, you know spit shine it, clean it up, maybe change the bearings or adjust something, whatever it is, spray paint it, clean it up, make it really, replace the padding, the cushions, and then somebody else could utilize it for a fraction, for no cost or a fraction of the cost. It just makes total sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is, kind of amazing. You call it spit shine. I love that. I haven't heard that in a while. Yeah. Um, but that's it. And it's being able to, move from point A to point B that we kind of take for granted because
Right.
we're healthy folks who can do that. Or even, for example, on a basic level, being able to bathe. If there's a child who can't sit in the bathtub, it doesn't require two hands to bathe them. It requires four hands to bathe them. And if you think
Right.
about, what that's all about, um, if a child can't sit in the bathtub, and it's been interesting along this road, what we see, um, you know, we have folks that have insurance. Yes, that's great. But we also have folks that don't have insurance, or their insurance doesn't cover a specific piece of
Sure.
equipment. And bath seats are one that, it kind of comes and goes where, well, this year it's covered and next year it's not covered.
Right.
And one of the lines that I've seen written is that they consider that, quote unquote, a luxury item. Well, if you think about personal hygiene, that's not really a luxury.
It's not.
It's a right, if nothing else. And if we can give them a bath seat, that allows them to be supported in the tub, where just the mama or the daddy can, take care of that task, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Plus, they're safe. They're not at risk of drowning in the tub or being injured in the tub. Um, that's not really a luxury, in my opinion. And so there's some things that come along like that. I get on my soapbox about certain things because it's just kind of maddening to observe it, and you know,
Well, and
that's a big deal.
yeah, and you think it should be common sense, but it's but
Mm,
it's
right.
it's but that's an amazing gift that you have given to so many families, and to and I mentioned before how I love small businesses, and I love entrepreneurship, and this idea came out of a need because a fire marshal said get rid of this junk in this closet.
Yeah,
He had no idea what value that junk, he may consider it, was worth.
absolutely. I mean, in many cases, it's priceless, for lack of a better
Yeah,
descriptor. And coming back to, just refurbishing, or the spit shine and all of that. um you know that we're an ultimate green organization because we're taking these things that maybe would go to a junkyard or a landfill, and we're retooling them and providing it for someone else. So I don't know, that story about it, one man's junk is another man's treasure. I mean, that
sure,
really is true in our organization because
right,
we look at things and it's like, oh my God, that's great. We'll take that. We'll take that. So there's times when we feel like we're bordering on hoarding, but when you need a particular part or a particular piece in order to make the puzzle complete, we have a warehouse where there's a gentleman who gives us the space in the warehouse to allow us to do what we do. And in COVID, prior to COVID, we lost our space for that. And I say that kind of like no good deed goes unpunished. We had to pack up all of our stuff and go somewhere else. And we're looking at 2,500 square feet of equipment in bins of parts that I had to find a home for. So I have to give a shout out to Porter Pipe in Addison, Illinois, because they gave us a corner where we could keep all of our stuff while we figured out our next step and waiting for COVID to kind of settle down. And so we are graciously supported by two organizations where the rubber meets the road. So one is New Motion Lombard, which is a DME company who actually lets us have space, lets us have our clinics there, and actually some of their guys, their assistive technology professionals, allow hands-on because they're the actual experts for turning the wrenches. I mean, I know how to turn a wrench, but they're the experts,
sure,
and they help us to kind of do what we do. And then the other is Travelon, company in Franklin Park that allowed us to bring all of our bins of stuff and unpack them. So we have a wall of parts there, and we have one of the aisles in this really, up to date modern warehouse where we have wheelchairs and walkers and standers and gait trainers and all this equipment. They gave us a little bit of an aisle, and we've kind of expanded to the end of it. But Don Godshaw and Travel On have been very, very supportive of what we do in order to keep our stuff, because you got to have stuff in order to make this go.
Yeah, no
So,
doubt.
it's
Well,
kind of
that's
crazy.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And Porter Pipe, their related company is Bulldog Cartage,
Yep.
and they have been a guest on our podcast in the past as well. So
Yeah,
interesting,
they're a great
connection.
family-owned operation, and
Absolutely.
when we had to move our stuff, Bulldog Cartage brought us their big blue trucks, and we got to schlep our things from point A to point B a couple times. So
Yeah.
they've been a big supporter of what we do, kind of behind the scenes, because it takes a village to do this, and you really don't realize what you need till you need it, and we don't have big trucks, but we got friends who have big trucks, so we kind of got a guy too for certain
Yeah,
things. And
that's right. That's
it's
right.
Chicago. You got to have a guy in order to make things go.
Exactly.
So, right.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. Hey, Tim, we're going to take a break here for a second, but before we do so, why don't you provide your contact information? So if somebody has, maybe they have some equipment they want to donate, or they have a child in need, or they know somebody that's in need, how would they reach
Yeah.
out to your organization?
So there's a couple different ways. The easiest way is to go to our website, which is www.tken, all lowercase, .org, www.tken.org. And there's all sorts of menus on there for donating equipment, donating your time, signing up to be a volunteer. But there's an application there. We have an application process because that keeps order to the chaos, even though our clinics are kind of 4 hours of chaos on a Saturday.
Sure.
So you fill out an application, and we look at the application. We want to make sure that people use their available resources, because a lot of folks aren't aware of things like this or where to seek out things like this. And sometimes they can get it brand new, but you have to do it there's ways to do it. So we can direct them on how to do that. And if that's not something that's going to work for them, or they have a wheelchair and maybe need a backup stroller, then they fill out our application. We look and take a peek at it, look at our inventory, and then what we do is we marry the application up to our inventory, and then they get an invitation to one of the upcoming clinics on a Saturday. They're typically on a Saturday morning from 8 till about noon, and I call it organized chaos, where we schedule approximately 15 to 20 children and fit them with the equipment that they're asking us for. But that way they have an appointment. We know they're coming. We prepare the equipment ahead of time, so we're ready to deliver that at the time that they need it. So all of the things for contact are on there. There's also a question tab if you have questions. My contact is Timc at tken.org. And those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me and our organization.
Okay.
We
So the
do have
website or email.
Facebook. Yeah, email is great. And we don't answer it immediately, but we answer it within a day or two of receiving it. And then we put our heads together and figure out how we can do this, or if we have questions, or we may tell the family, well, here's how you need to move forward, being able to get something like this of your very own brand new, because you have the means to do it, but not everyone has that
Right.
option.
Right. Well, that's great advice, great support to folks that really need it. So I'll put that information on our screen and in our notes, so our listeners and our viewers can reach out to you directly. And as I mention every week to our listeners, when you reach out to Tim, make sure you heard about him here at I Got a Guy podcast, so Tim can let me know that he's getting some awesome connections with our awesome listeners. So
That's
that's
great.
great. So, Tim, we're going to take a quick break and then come back, and we're going to continue talking. I want to talk about some of your successes, and I really want to dive into this MacGyver clinic you talked about. I'm curious, but let's chat about that after the break here, and continue with Tim Caruso from the Kids Equipment Network. So, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. If your business uses heavy equipment as part of its daily routine, sadly, I don't need to educate you on the reality that this equipment has been the focus of many local thieves either. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Recovering a stolen asset is just one way we contribute to the bottom line of the business. Our GPS tracking units used in heavy equipment are weather tight so they can handle the elements and even have an internal battery to continue to report its location should the battery in the asset be disconnected. We have several examples of the benefits of GPS tracking in heavy equipment. Reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions for a detailed discussion about our options and to see if it makes sense for your business. You can find Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. GPS tracking made simple. Now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back. I am Michael Drelicharz, host of I Got a Guy podcast. I am welcomed this week by a very special guest, doing amazing work for some kids that really need it. We're talking with Tim Caruso from the Kids Equipment Network. Tim, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Mike.
I really enjoyed the first half of this episode, talking about the history of the Kids Equipment Network and all the awesome things you're doing. And it's just remarkable. And like I said, we have a dear friend of ours who has a child that has used many of the pieces of equipment that you repurpose, and I don't know, they may have donated equipment to you in the past as well. But there's such a need right now to support this community, and you do an amazing job. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, it's a labor of love, but it's kind of, you've heard it takes a village. So we have, a village of, physical therapists, occupational therapists, teachers, the Chicago public schools, the children's hospitals in the area, Lurie, La Rabida, some of the teaching programs for physical therapy, the University of Illinois and Midwestern University. We have, volunteers that come, students that are interested in learning how to do this, how to turn a wrench, because they may get maybe an hour lecture on adaptive equipment in their teaching, in their programming and education, but they don't really kind of show them how to do it. How do you do it? So,
Right.
I've been a therapist a really long time, and we used to have continuing education courses over the weekend where you would go and learn some of these things, and
Right.
those are still out there, but they're certainly not in the uh, in the amount that probably is necessary like they used to be, because it's expensive for companies and organizations to put these education programs on. Um, so we also see ourselves as an educational resource for some of the professional programs in the area. That includes physicians as well, where they might want to go into this as a physiatrist or more of a pediatrician sort of a link, and they could come and hang out with us and see how we do it. How we're one particular way that we do it, but this is definitely a specialty area. Complex rehabilitation is a big area in healthcare, but it's very specialized, and so we have. I have to say we have. You talk about having a guy. I mean, we have the rock star therapists and assistive technology professionals in the area who come and volunteer their time and their expertise to make these clinics a success. And that's a big deal. And I learn something every time we have a clinic on, gee, how do we do this? We mentioned MacGyver,
Mm.
um, we have MacGyver, where MacGyver used to be able to build a building with a paperclip, and so we kind of do stuff like that with you know wheelchairs that need to be repurposed, or standers that need to be repurposed, or someone who is not shaped like we are and can't sit like we sit, so they're like maybe laying sideways in the frame of a wheelchair and look more. I have a therapy friend who said, well, this is my mermaid chair, and it's someone who's basically pretty straight, but more like an S curve, someone laying on their side, and we build an adaptive seating system in order to accommodate their particular needs. So it's like if you have a particular puzzle piece, and you get something off the shelf, it's not going to fit that particular piece. So you got to actually build the piece, and that's
Right.
our MacGyver side of the fence. And I mean, every time we have a clinic, it's extraordinary when we look at the end of the day, like what we accomplished. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Like I said, it fills your heart, and it reinforces your spirit of doing good. So.
Yeah, yeah. And I can imagine, you have to have a couple really sharp engineers on staff that can look at a situation, think about it for a minute or two, maybe sketch it out on a piece of paper, and then weld it, build it, drill it, whatever it is that you need to do to make it work, so it's functional, safe, and helps those individuals be productive.
Right, right. And changes their life right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
That's really remarkable. And I remember our friend that when their son was growing up, he had a couple different bicycles, and the bicycles for these children are so much different than the bicycles that we grew up riding.
yep.
And they're super expensive. Brand new, they
Oh,
are
yeah.
super expensive. Um, and it's just it's unfortunate that they're so expensive, but there's also a lot of effort that goes into designing these. So they are pretty much, I don't know if they would call them custom, maybe semi-custom. They'll
Hmm.
so it's a difficult challenge because there's a lot of cost that goes into you know creating a custom piece of equipment from the
Right,
from the ground up as a manufacturer.
right.
But be able to take that and help others use it, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, like you say, there's some really, really cool bikes. There's a guy that kind of works magic with that. His name is Hal Honeyman, and he's got the bike rack out in St. Charles. And we used to bring some of the kids from Shriners out there who had never ridden a bike in their whole lives, and he would kind of look at them like you say, and he go, "Well, we have one." And some of the bike, there was actually a bike where you actually lay kind of on your stomach position in order to pedal it, and we would bring some folks out there who have never ridden, and we'd end up going down the prairie path with the bikes after everyone got fitted, and it was extraordinary to witness, observe, and see the smiles on someone's face who's never ridden a bike, and that's
Right.
uh you know priceless. So.
So where is your you mentioned a couple of these places where you store some equipment. When you have your clinics, where are they located?
So one of the clinics is in Franklin Park, at
Okay.
the warehouse I mentioned in Franklin Park, and the other one is at New Motion Lombard. And so what I always say is that we're not a store, so you just can't show up. That's why we have the application process.
Sure.
Um, and a couple of times a year, in fact, this weekend, we're having a stand up for the kids event along with our clinic, where we sometimes we get a lot of stuff that starts to get a little dusty in the warehouse, and we want to move it forward and give it to somebody else. So, in a lot of the cases that we have equipment either that we can't use or it needs to move along, we will share it with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, the Spinal Cord Association of Illinois, United Cerebral Palsy. That's locally. We let the Chicago Public Schools know, and the hospitals, our therapists who do early intervention with the littlers. And so this particular Saturday, we invited a bunch of therapists to bring a van and come and take something with that they could maybe use in order to move things along. We've also reached out across the world to charities and organizations that do similar things out of this country. So we've reached out to
Hmm.
Mexico, South America, the Ukraine, Lithuania, China. Those are some of the organizations that we have in Africa. where we've moved things along and shared the wealth, for lack of a better word, shared the equipment with someone who maybe couldn't get it where they're at. And, we try and do that as much as we possibly can. So that way things don't sit and get dusty in our place. So we also
Yeah,
have a 53-foot trailer sitting at Shriners Hospital, which I uh, got while I was working there. And when I left Shriners, I said, I'm leaving my wife to work with you guys, and I'm leaving you my trailer, and you have to be nice to both of them. But it's kind of a holding area. And before COVID, we would have a stroller clinic at Shriners once every couple of months, and COVID made that go away. But we're in the process of retooling that so we can do strollers for the children at Shriners who need it uh, at Shriners. So we're trying to get that back up and going, and we're pretty close. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't think about the broader community and helping kids worldwide, because you're right. There's so many children here in the U.S. that need this equipment, but there are kids throughout the world that need it, and to be able to share the love outside of our borders, or even and even outside the city of Chicago, um,
absolutely,
that's really amazing. That's a really it's awesome that you've been able to build a network like that,
yeah.
and
It's
with
cool. I
with a
mean,
similar
and
mission.
it's if we get pictures back from wherever, and they're like, look at, because the other thing is the availability of this sort of equipment. I mean, we have it here in the U.S. The U.S. is an amazing place, but if you go not far away, they may not have access to this sort of equipment, and so uh,
Right.
it really can make a difference for someone somewhere else. And so, I mean, my vision for this is to be able to put gee, how do you do this in a little lunch box back in the days of lunch box. Now there's lunch bags, but lunch boxes, and to make it kind of turnkey for someone who'd be interested in doing this, because the need is everywhere. And if
Right.
we could have our little lunch box and someone calls us from Paducah, or wherever, San Diego, or China, and they go, well, how do you do this? We send them the lunchbox, and it tells them how to do this, and they can start up their own way. Charity doesn't have to be Tekin, Tekin Part 10, but they can start it up near themselves. Because there's the need is there, and sometimes there is some equipment there that needs a home as well. So um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. And so obviously you also network with other children's hospitals throughout the country as well, right?
Yes, people reach out to us, with questions, or, they may say, um, gosh, we have a child who's coming to our hospital, but they're also going to be stopping in at Shriners for an evaluation. Can you guys take a look at them? So we have therapists that help us who actually work at Shriners, and they they can lay eyes on someone and help us out that way as well. So
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be so rewarding every day. When you close out your day, you've got to feel really good in your heart.
it's been a long but very fulfilling road, and many years ago, I don't know who said this to us, but they said, you're doing God's work. And I'm like, I don't mess with God. I'm a Christian. I believe in God, but I was a little leery of accepting that's what we do, but I believe now that that's what we do, and we don't put that on any of our information. It's in our hearts. We carry that with us.
Right.
But we are, and that's a big darn deal. So
Yeah, it really is, and that's that's a great way to carry that message forward, subtly, yet confidently, and serving the greater need, and helping these families out. Because and it's got to be a huge relief for the parents of these children, because these kids need, um, they really need this assistance, and some of them can't advocate for themselves. The parents obviously do this for them, and it's got to be really stressful on the parents. So come in and give them a solution is awesome.
Right. And there are tears in our clinics, and most of the time they're happy tears because you
Of
know
course.
we when we hit the nail on the head, it's pretty extraordinary. And um excuse me, if you go to our website, there's a link to some of our, and actually we're on Facebook, and you can get there from the bottom of our web page. In our Facebook page, we have albums of pictures and videos, and if you click on some of those, it just brings joy to your heart to see. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And you are doing God's work on earth here, and thank you for that. That's remarkable. I'm really glad we hooked up recently at a networking event, and I was able to chat with you for a few minutes, because this is it's near and dear to my heart. I'm also a Christian, and but more importantly, we know families that have this need and have had this need, and
Right.
have seen the challenges firsthand.
Well, for
So
sure, for sure.
yeah,
And in that, none of that has gone away or gotten better. I mean, it's still there. It still exists. We exist because the need exists. And
right,
what's you know in a little way, it's sad because a lot of times the families don't know what they don't know, or they don't know
right,
where to seek out these particular help. I can shout out to Shriners Hospital in Chicago, and Shriners has network across the country, but Shriners does amazing things. And if you have a child with special needs and you're not sure where to turn, that's a great first step to get into the Shriners system, because they have doctors that serve orthopedic, neurologic, plastic, craniofacial, cleft lip and palate. They serve all those needs. And there's also the therapists and the equipment vendors all standing behind them to make that all go and be successful. So,
right.
when I worked at Shriners a long time ago, they said they would provide free care. And that was amazing in and of itself. And they really can't say that any longer. But what I believe they still have, the tagline is, "No one is made to pay." So if you're kind of afraid to get into a medical center, and you're worried about the bills and things, I can tell you that Shriners is a safe place to start with your child with special needs, in order to provide them the care that they need, or at least be directed as to where to find it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a lot of helpful hands and hearts over there, doing
absolutely.
what they can, and I'm proud to know you, Tim, and all you're able to do as well.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. This has been a pleasure. And if folks have questions, they could shoot me a note, and we'll see if we can help them out. We have a couple of functions for the public. We have a golf outing coming up August 23rd at Old Orchard Country Club, and that information is on our website. That is a fun day. It's a best ball tournament. So if you're not a good golfer, you can bring a good golfer, and it's a best ball tournament, and there's prizes. It's usually a very fun day. But we do that, and we have another fundraiser in February at the Cubby Bear Chicago, across from Wrigleyville, where we actually have a bags tournament, cornhole. People call it cornhole, we call it bags. And we have a raffle, and there's food, and those two uh, activities allow us to make some money and help us pay our bills, because we have no paid employees. I'm proud to say everyone volunteers, and that includes me. This is like an amazing part-time hobby, but it takes up a great deal of time, and it costs a good amount of money to make it go. So we do those
Absolutely.
things, and we have a donation tab if you're just feeling generous and want to sponsor one of our clinics, or help this continue. We're happy to take your generous donation, and we are 501c3, so you can put it on the tax for the tax man and all of that. But we thank you, and now that we're friends, our network has just gotten bigger, and we have more friends in order to make the village bigger and make this go successfully. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Tim, and share your website with our listeners again.
It's www.tken, which stands for the Kids Equipment Network, tken.org, and that's all lowercase.
Yeah, tken.org. Okay.
Yep.
Again, that'll be on the screen. It'll be in our notes, and people will be able to reach out to you. And then your email is timc@tken.org.
timc@tken.org.
Yeah, Tim C.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. So to our listeners, if you would love to reach out to Tim, even just to send him a welcoming message, just email him directly, connect with him. You can also go to their Facebook page. You can find it. Facebook page is the Kids Equipment Network.
Yep. Actually, you can link it at the bottom. It's I can't remember exactly the tag, but there's a link on the bottom of the web page.
Okay.
Or if you Google it, it comes up. And if folks would like to volunteer, if you like turning wrenches and stuff, and you want to come and lend a hand, or we have a coloring table for the kids because if a child with special needs comes and they have a brother or sister, they kind of get bored watching us do what we do. So we have an activity table to keep them occupied while we're doing our stuff. So
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Well, I thank you for that, and appreciate you spending some time today to share your message with our audience. And like I said before, to our listeners, just let Tim know that you heard about him here on I Got a Guy podcast. And as we wrap up this week's episode, I want to throw a quick little plug in for my day job, how I pay the bills, and that is Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. And we work with business owners that own commercial vehicles, and we help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through using our GPS tracking technology. We work with all types of businesses. Sometimes we're protecting assets like bobcats and trailers and lawnmowers. Sometimes we're tracking trucks, delivery trucks, and buses and vans and pickup trucks, etc. But if you have ever considered or been concerned about where your drivers might be throughout the day or want to enhance their safety, we have solutions that can help. So I'd encourage you to reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. Our website is precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. 847-865-6008 is our number. We'll have a conversation and see if we can provide some value. So no major obligation. Just let's have a conversation and see how we can help. And again, if you want to be a guest on I Got a Guy podcast, I encourage you to go to our website at igotaguypodcast.com, fill out the contact link, and share your story, and let's see how we can have you on, just like we had Tim on this week. So, Tim, again, thank you for providing so much value to the population. It makes my heart swell thinking about all the good things you do.
Well, Michael, thank you so much, and I'm glad to call you my friend. So much appreciated. Have a great weekend.
You bet. All right, we'll talk with you soon, and we'll, to our listeners, make it a great week, and we'll talk with you as well. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.